The time has come to put my League starter to rest. It did bring me up to tier 15 maps, but well, it's not getting any further. I have started a couple of new builds and I didn't just want to let it rot without talking about it a little bit. So in this video I want to talk about my Infernalist, Frostmage, Cast on Freeze, Shock, Ignite. It has been through all of them. But the version that got me the furthest was the Cast on Freeze and Elemental Invocation setup. This version utilizes Frostbolt, as you can see, to freeze enemies and then trigger Cold Snap to let the Frostbolts explode and deal a lot of damage. In the current meta, you could probably build more or less the same on the Shock Mage, something Stormweaver, and go with Fireball, Fire to Cold Conversion Gloves, which is a much better variant of this build. But I had quite a bit of fun with Frostbolt, even though the projectile speed is horrendous and it's very annoying. Just if you want to go for something in this direction, I would highly advise to go with the Fireball route on this Stormweaver. However, this character, as I said, brought me up to tier 15. I did kill olroth with it, which needs quite a bit of single target, and I do think single target this build actually has quite some of. However, the biggest issue with the build has been the projectile speed of the Frostbolt and the survivability, because the Infernalist doesn't really have great ways to scale defense. We cannot really run a lot of armor on the top side of the tree. I tried to get a couple in, but we ended up at 2.5k and much more would be very expensive. Then we cannot really go Mind over Matter or something due to Pyromantic Pact, and we cannot really stack Energy Shield due to Pyromantic Pact as well. So we're kinda left with getting life, which is fairly impossible, and here we start running out of options. So getting any kind of defense on this character was pretty much impossible. So we started dying in higher maps over and over, and I lost a lot of fun playing it. So that was when we started to look for new options, and I went with my Flicker Striker, which will be, well, part of the next couple of videos, because that one is going quite insane and we will put a lot of currency in there. But let's take a look at this character for once and then let it rest. So on the passive tree, we are going for a lot of crit and the meta skill stuff. We go for cold skill, general elemental stuff, and then for the weapon swap, we want more projectiles for the clear setup and more damage for the single target setup. Everything pretty straightforward. We do need a lot of recoup, which we also put on our jewels, which is very good. Recoup and meta skill gain, area effect, damage, something in that direction generally. You want some recover life on kill, though you can also use the aura when you have enough, how it's called, the recover 4% life on kill aura when you have enough spirit left. Then the biggest interaction of this build, or the most interesting part I would say, is the Snake Pit interaction with Frostbolt, because Snake Pit is what makes the build work at all. Snake Pit makes it so that Frostbolt does actually explode on hitting enemies, which triggers, well, the explosion of Frostbolt, which deals a lot more damage than Frostbolt itself, and is able to freeze the enemies fairly well, which then triggers the how it's called, I always forget the names of the skill, the Cold Snap, to, well, let the Frostbolts explode again with the Cold Snap damage, and this deals even more damage. So actually a very cool setup, though you have to support it with either acceleration or use a setup with a bow and quiver, which I do think I have sold already. I cannot really show it. We did use a quiver with projectile speed and life gain on kill. Check where I do have a quiver somewhere here, something like this. +2 to our projectile skills, then we want dexterity, gain life, and projectile speed, and then you want to use the bow Widow Hail to, well, make the quiver stronger. This would give a lot of projectile speed and actually make the build somewhat playable, but the damage would lag even more, which is kind of a problem. So, other than that, this character doesn't really have special gear, armor pieces with stats, because another very, very big problem of the build is that we do need a lot of strength to wear the strength gear, we need a lot of dex to use elemental invocation, and we need a lot of intelligence to use all the other skills. So we are extremely starved for stats, so having resistances was very annoying. We did have to ditch a lot of chaos resistance, which made us even less tanky, and you see the cookie crumbles. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. For a single target, I am using a ball lightning setup because this can shock a lot. You just get a lot of shocks off the bosses and then can trigger elemental invocation over and over and over and over again. This is very, very cool and does actually work pretty well. I'm sorry, I'm just here. It's weird. I'm fairly tired, so I'm sorry for that. Also, for clear, you can use a frost wall to let the frost balls fork or chain there, depending which slot you are running your snake pit in. Pretty cool interaction there. And yes, for the cast on freeze, you want Cold Snap, Spell Cascade, Impetus, and Energy Retention, and something with damage as last slot. Hypothermia, you want with Persistence, Focused Curse, and Heightened Curse. The cast and shock setup on single target is Eye of Winter, Ricochet, Wild Shards, and Cold Exposure to get cold exposure and critical weakness onto the bosses. Then you have Ball Lightning with Deceleration, Overcharge, Conduction, and something to get even higher shocks on the enemy or better shocks on the enemy as the next slot. For the Frostbolt, you want Scatter Shot, Arcane Tempo, Glaciation, and Acceleration. I did play with Unleashed here as well instead of Acceleration when I was running the bow setup. Sixth link would be Unleashed here. Elemental Invocation is Comet with Considered Casting, Spell Echo, and Capacitor. Pretty good setup overall. This deals a lot of single target damage with the Ball Lightning setup, though you can just put this entire setup onto Stormweaver, and if you get to manage the mana costs and play Fireball instead of Frostbolt with the Fire to Cold conversion gloves, you have a much, much better character. And would probably delete some of the endgame bosses with the single target of Elemental Invocation if you can get the mana costs. Though this pretty much is everything I wanted to talk about, because this character really doesn't have all that many special action aside from what I've just showed. So I say thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will answer everything. So thanks for watching and see you